Do you know that a lot of entrepreneurs and their startups cannot achieve maximum revenue in their business because of poor contract management? Let me tell you about contracting tips every entrepreneur needs to master for successful business, because for today, contract is a basis of commercial relationships. I'm Stan, experienced professional in contracts and procurement. Please subscribe my channel, like my video. It will motivate me to make more about contracts and procurement in more convenient video format for you. Well, Investopedia.com says that entrepreneur is an individual who creates new businesses bearing most of risks and enjoying most of rewards. The entrepreneur is commonly seen as an innovator, a source of new goods, services, ideas, and businesses. From my perspective, there are keywords that could be highlighted from definition above: new business, risks, innovator, and idea. Considering this, and without prejudice to business area you are operating on or are going to operate in, to ensure that you always handle your paperwork properly is very important. Both your venture and yourself in particular should be properly protected while entering into relationships with internal and external stakeholders, other entities and companies, and employees. There is an answer on the question why effective and well-written contract is incredibly important for entrepreneurs. The following contract management tips could be used in order to ensure that all your potential contract gaps are closed. The first, please understand your target from each contract. You should be very clear about purposes you need this kind of contract, results you want to get from it by its expiration date. Only such kind of understanding will allow for entrepreneurs to write on contractual provisions with maximum efficiency, as operational as commercial, and protect from potentially risky scenarios. It's also recommended to develop a separate contracting strategy or even contracting quilt to guarantee that all your activities are covered and managed by separate contracts. The next is make sure that the contract covers all aspects. It means that contracts should be created very carefully that will cover all bases you need them to, without any weak spots which could prove problematic in the contract implementation. That's why when working with other party or maybe with your team before, on contract drafting, you should ensure that subject matter, parties' obligations, payment terms, general and specific requirements, key performance indicators, and all other expectations are envisaged by the contract provisions. The next is keep the right for yourself to terminate the contract, and please don't forget about it. Do not forget to give yourself a way to get out from contract when things will go bad. Of course, you may have a good existing relationships with other parties, both economic and political, environmental are stable, but you never know when things could take a negative turn or when your personal situation may change. Let's take, for example, the existing situation with global coronavirus outbreak. That's why clauses regarding contract termination should be included to determine factors which allows both parties to annul the contract. The next tip is, you may say it's boring, but please set contracts procedure. Clear contract management process is very important for all its participants. It's always important to set internal procedure in place to describe step by step how new contracts should be created and current ones managed. Such procedure should cover both pre-award and post-award stages, from contract request till its closeout. Try to specify in details in your procedures who needs to sign off the contract, which template to use for each situation, audit, reporting, and others. The next tip is very important. Do kickoff meeting with other party. When you have just formally entered into the contract, the best thing to do and to start from is to dot the I's and cross the T's by arranging a separate kickoff meeting. How the contract will work, how parties should implement their obligations, technical and organizational aspects of contract and future work. These things and others should be discussed and presented at such kind of kickoff meeting. It's always better to have a clear mutual understanding in the beginning than waste money, time, and other resources on the later stage of contract implementation. Do a regular contract review. As I said above, contract management could be divided into two separate stages: pre-award and post-award. And since the contract has been put in place, you are in post-award stage. To manage the contract successfully without regular follow-up over the contract, it's quite difficult. Such follow-up, for instance, may include checking of parties' implementation of their commitments, progress, schedule, negotiations of potential variations. By doing this, you will be able to identify present issues and problems, and as a result, close or keep it by variation accordingly. But practice shows if you are able to implement pre-award stage very carefully, you can avoid any problems and obstacles at post-award stage. And you can watch an introduction video about pre-award stage at my channel as well. So please enjoy. It is called as 7 steps before contract signing, step 0. Okay, the next tip I would like to share with you: do closeout of contract carefully. What does it mean? So, when the contract is not effective anymore, it means the end date has come or it was terminated, it will be better to implement some actions to close out the contract. Both parties should be ensured that all obligations, including financial, upon the date, have been implemented and no other claims could be raised out further. Some parties, in terms of big contracts, even sign a separate act accordingly, proved that the contract is closed and no other rights they will have in future to claim. If you have specified in your contract such provisions like guarantee period, which should be after main work or service implementation, better if you will implement closeout procedure after this period. And do not forget to provide relevant feedback for other party and do lessons learned. Friends, if you find presented tips are useful for you and you enjoy this video, please click like and subscribe on my channel to see more about contracts and procurement.